This era starts when the Egyptian rulers of the 13th dynasty relocate the capital from Tawai to Thebes, the former capital of the late 11th dynasty in Upper Egypt, thereby weakening their grip on the north. Amenemhat I, 1991 to 1962 BCE, established the tiny settlement of Hutwaret in the far north at the start of the 12th dynasty, which developed into a commercial hub with easy access to the sea and road paths to Sinai and the area of Palestine. During the 13th dynasty, effective trade and immigration brought an increase of Semitic people to Avaris, who ultimately grew wealthy and powerful enough to wield governmental power in the nation. These individuals were known to the Egyptians as Hekakosset or Hyksos. The name of the Hyksos remains unclear. Many hypotheses have been proposed, including the possibility that they were refugees escaping the Aryan invasion of Asia. The Nordic invasion hypothesis has been debunked, as has this assertion. The Egyptians refer to them as Asians, but this was a word used for anyone beyond the country's eastern boundary, from the Levant to Mesopotamia. During the late 13th dynasty, the Egyptian monarchs ceased supplying the border fortifications located in Nubia, and no additional soldiers were stationed there. The troops, who were already stationed at the forts, were never returned to Egypt, and the former garrisons became their permanent residence. These troops served as commerce intermediaries between the Egyptian city of Thebes and the kingdom of Kush. As the 13th dynasty neglected matters to the south, just as they were doing to the north, the kingdom of Kush developed into a centralized power, with its capital at Kerma. Some of the ancient Egyptian fortifications along the border were destroyed at some time, presumably during an assault, though this is unclear. What is evident is that as Egyptian government in Thebes disregarded Kush's influence in the south, Kush's power increased, and the boundary became more flexible. The troops who had been left behind no longer saw it as their duty to protect against invasions, and had grown more acclimated to the role of traders than military men by this point. The monarchs documented for the latter portion of the 13th and 16th dynasties are non-Egyptians, or at the very least, do not have Egyptian names and are considered Hyksos rulers. Their timeline is muddled, and some names are only known from ceremonial items, while others are only known from pieces of kings' lists, making dating problematic. The Hyksos achieved economic dominance of the eastern delta and then pushed north, negotiating treaties and forging contracts with various nomarchs, governors, of other districts in Lower Egypt, until they had conquered a sizable amount of territory and could exert political authority. Once established in Avaris, the Hyksos elevated Egyptians to positions of power, adopted Egyptian customs and attire, and absorbed Egyptian deity worship into their own beliefs and ceremonies. The Hyksos monarchs established Egypt's 15th dynasty, but once they were evicted, the invading Thebans destroyed all traces of the Hyksos in Egypt. Only a few Hyksos rulers are known by name thanks to the ruins of inscriptions and other texts discovered at Avaris and elsewhere, including the best known, Apepi. Apepi was also known as Apophis, and had an Egyptian name related to the giant snake Apophis or Apep, the sun god Ra's nemesis. At the same time the Hyksos rose to prominence in northern Egypt, the Nubians rose to power in the south. The Middle Kingdom's 13th dynasty, like Lower Egypt's, had forgotten to pay attention to its southern frontier. Thebes remained Upper Egypt's capital, but instead of dominating the entire nation, it was wedged between the Hyksos in the north and the Nubians in the south. According to Manetho, Apepi of the Hyksos wrote to the Theban king, Seqenenrunta, 1580 BCE, "Do away with the hippopotamus pool to the east of the city, for it prevents me from sleeping day and night." The message was most likely about the Theban practice of hippopotamus hunting, which would have been insulting to the Hyksos, who worshipped Set and included the hippo in their religious observances. Tao, rather than complying with the request, saw it as a challenge to his autonomy and marched on Avaris. His mummy indicates that he was slain in battle, and this, together with the events that follow, reveals that the Thebans were vanquished in this fight. Tao's son Kamos took up the cause, lamenting bitterly in an inscription about having to pay the Asiatics taxes and dealing with outsiders to the north and south of him and his kingdom. He launched a huge attack on the Hyksos, destroying Avaris according to the narrative. Kamos reports that his attack was so fast and scary that it rendered the Hyksos women barren, and that he destroyed the city to the ground following the carnage. This tale appears to be exaggerated, as the Hyksos retained control of Lower Egypt 3 years after Kamos's invasion, and Avaris remained the Hyksos' stronghold. Kamos was succeeded by his brother Ahmose, who, according to the inscriptions, drove the Hyksos out of Egypt and destroyed their metropolis of Avaris. These events are described in the tomb inscriptions of another man, Ahmose son of Abana, a soldier who fought under King Ahmose, who describes the devastation of Avaris and the retreat of the remaining Hyksos to Sharawin in the Palestine region. Ahmose then besieged this city for 6 years until the Hyksos fled again, this time to Syria, although what happened to them after that is unknown. Ahmose I not only established the 18th dynasty, but also began the new Kingdom of Egypt, the age of the Egyptian Empire. The Hyksos were responsible for the formation of a professional Egyptian army of conquest, since Ahmose I, and those who followed him, sought to ensure that no foreign nation ever gained such dominance in their land again. The triumph that would become the new kingdom, a period of unprecedented prosperity and success in Egypt, is the legacy of the Second Intermediate Period. The 18th dynasty of Egypt, established by Ahmose I, would build some of the most renowned and memorable monuments since the Old Kingdom's pyramids, and expand Egypt's borders into a kingdom.